Well, our next speaker needs no introduction. Thank you all for coming, Shabbat Shalom, to hear my speech this morning. Shabbat Shalom. Just to complete the circle from the conversation earlier, I was going to say I didn't think that whether Moses got into the promised land or not was the right question. I don't think it even needs to be a question, as Ben sort of pointed to. That's because life isn't fair, and we need to practice acceptance. And so the whole idea of whether or not it was fair for Moses to get in is a really interesting comment on just the way that our minds think and what our culture trains us in terms of fair and not fair, and how we teach our children as well. Life is very unfair and very unforgiving, and so the only way we can deal with that we can do two things. We can try to create some kind of order that makes us feel like we have control, which is a little bit illusory. But we also just can practice acceptance and realize that we're not really in control of much, and not even Moses was in control of everything. Shabbat Shalom. Musaf is on page 184. Okay. I'm going to put the rabbis out of a job. Okay. So, if regular milk comes from white cows, where does chocolate milk come from? Brown cows. And if chocolate milk comes from brown cows, where does strawberry milk come from?
Red cow.
Pink cows, naturally. Which leads us to this week's parsha. Chukat. Chukat is read twice during the year. Once in the natural order of the weekly Torah portions, as it was today, and once in the springtime during the lead up to Pesach. That spring reading is called Parshat Parah, the parsha of the cow or the heifer, and refers to the red heifer that the Torah describes as a requisite offering to make pure again those who had been exposed to dead bodies, whether by touch or simply occupying the same room. The red heifer is nearly mythical in both its halachic quandary. It purifies the impure, but also the priest who slaughters it, and its existence writ large. Who ever heard of a pink cow? But this surely is more about purity than looks. The Torah, as evidenced by much of the book of Leviticus, is deeply concerned with purity and impurity. As we know, there are laws governing the removal of those infected with skin diseases from the Israelite camp for 7 days, with the Kohanim, the priests, functioning as doctors that inspect the wounds to determine if the infection is contagious and or a cause of ritual impurity. This was especially important for priests who perform the most important functions of the temple, such as the sacrifices on behalf of the community to redeem the whole Israelite community from their sins. Priests were asked to avoid wine and other intoxicants when entering the tent of meeting, ruled that Datan and Aviram, sons of Aharon, broke and lost their lives over. The Talmud picks up on this theme of purity in tractate Avodah Zarah, where it teaches that, quote, diligence in observance leads to cleanliness of the soul. The concern with purity extends even to death, with the practice of tahara that involves a complete washing of the body before burial. Our Hever Kadisha here at Bethel performs this holy act on a regular basis. It is also believed that this helps the soul of the person make the transition from this world to the next. In a modern context, we practice ritual purity by washing our hands before saying Hamotzi, a practice we perform twice during the Seder, one with a bracha, one without. We don a kittel during Yom Kippur to symbolize our piety as we contemplate our own mortality on that day. The kittel is also worn during our wedding as a symbol of purity, entering a new relationship. And of course, the mikveh, which we just visited yesterday to make that beautiful Jewish child out there, Madison. So we know what purity is to a biblical and Talmudic Jew. But what is it to us? At the end of Parshat Chukat, Moses and the Israelites find a well, and they sing a song of that well, much like they had after passing through the Sea of Reeds. Only this time, the song is a verse and a half in length instead of a long verbose paragraph. There's a a person that I get updates from on a WhatsApp text chat group that I may or may not have joined on purpose, called like Daily Halacha, and the guy identifies himself as Shammai, which is, and what's that? But it's not clear. But it's not Hillel, that's for sure. Yeah, he's never threatened to throw a brick at anybody. But different people share their particular teachings on this WhatsApp group. And he shared this teaching about the end of this week's Parsha. Quote, recall that Miriam also led a song at the Sea of Reeds for the women, but it was only one verse and included musical instruments and dancing. So 40 years later, Moses learned from his sister Miriam, who had just died recently, that rather than long-winded poetry with lofty words, it is better to keep the communal prayers short and simple. And let me pause. I know, I'm saying that. Let me pause to actually preview, and then I'm going to get back into the sermon. Let me pause to preview that we're actually doing this at the end of August. We're going to be doing something I'm going to call moving Jewish experiences, which is sort of a play on words moving that we're going to have a tripartite, not like across the street, a tripartite service in which you can come for Shacharit, and then it'll be like a half an hour Sukkot Zimra and Shacharit, early morning and Shacharit, and then we'll have an Oneg afterwards, and then we'll have a second service experience, which will be the Torah service, and then we'll have a third, and then we'll have a little Oneg, and then we'll have a third experience, which will be the sermon and Musaf. The reason for doing this is to make things shorter and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Digestible, approachable. One of the biggest challenges we have is that synagogue is way too long, and it's boring for lots of people. For lots of reasons. We don't have the attention span we used to have. Social media gives us things in 30-second bites, sometimes just in 5-second bites. So people are not accustomed to sitting for long periods of time, and we need to respond to that and be aware of that instead of hoping that we're going to do something different again and again and again. That's the definition of insanity, right? That things are going to change by doing the same thing. So we're going to take these three more comestible parts of the service. We're going to shrink them down so people don't have to be late to services anymore. They can just come to the service that makes sense for them and stay if they want and leave if they want. And the whole idea is to be able to approach shul in a different way, knowing that things don't have to be long-winded to be meaningful. So that's my advertisement, but also sort of tangent following that teaching from the rabbi. So, in a recent meditation class, we studied the value of histapkut, which means simplicity or contentment. This practice involves seeking what you need and giving up what you do not need. As the 11th century rabbi and poet Ibn Gabirol taught, Moses realized after 40 years that he did not need so many words to express his gratitude, his thankfulness. So too it is true of our possessions. We live in a materialistic world, and we don't need nearly so many things as we already possess to be happy. The spirit becomes weighed down by constant messages from the media that we don't have enough, buy enough, or consume enough to be happy, that somehow happiness is equal to consumption. Shabbat is about the cessation of creation, and it can also be about consuming less media, less screen time, and less distraction, while focusing more on the simplicity of 2 candles, 2 chalot, 1 glass of wine. There is a word for this in Hebrew. That word is tam, simplicity. Deuteronomy 18 commands us to be, quote, wholehearted with your God. And Psalm 19 teaches that, quote, Torah Adonai Tamimah, God's Torah is pure. From this we learn that purity and simplicity flow from the same word. Perhaps it took Moses 40 years to learn simplicity. But we can practice it in small ways every day. We can practice contentment by looking at the richness we have instead of the possessions we lack. Think about when somebody comes over to your home and says, "Oh, what a beautiful home you have. I love how you've decorated it." You probably haven't noticed how beautiful your home is in 5 years or 10 years, or maybe since the day that you bought it and you were enthralled with this new aspect of your life, this new possession. Or maybe somebody gets into your car and says, "Oh, what a nice car. This is such a nice car to sit in." And you haven't recognized or appreciated how nice the car is that you're sitting in. Or somebody meets your child and they say, "Oh, your child is so kind and so well-mannered." And after you recover from the shock, you say, "You know what? My child is kind. My child is well-mannered. I have raised a good person." Or like when you see a memory on social media and it says, "This was 5 years ago," or "This was 10 years ago," and you look at your child and you realize how young and pure they were, and why did you allow yourself to become so incensed or angry or upset over the actions of a pure and innocent being. And so all of these things give us perspective and help us to practice, I'll just make up this word because I'm not sure what it would be, but smimut, pureness, holiness, simplicity. So there's a final teaching here from Psalm 51, and it comes from a song that we often do on our musical Friday nights. The words are Lev Tahor Barali Elohim, Chadesh Bekirbi Ruach Chadasha. Create a pure heart in me and renew a true soul. So as we go forward from this sort of baffling, mythic parsha of the red heifer, let's take out of it not something that's unachievable to find some animal that would achieve all of the pure aims of our ancestors or of the Torah. But let's do something more actionable for ourselves to every day create a pure heart, to practice simplicity, and to need less and to appreciate more. Shabbat Shalom.